It started with a lie so bold, so outrageous, it should have collapsed under its own weight. A fake Sheik, a stolen painting, a rented office in Long Island, and a promise of millions in oil money. But behind the velvet robes and the thick Middle Eastern accent wasn't a real Arab investor. It was the FBI, and what followed would expose one of the most jaw-dropping operations in American law enforcement history. It didn't just catch petty thieves or crooked brokers. It took down US congressmen, senators, politicians who swore oaths by day and took bribes by night. The scandal didn't just whisper corruption, it screamed it from behind closed doors, caught in grainy VHS footage as elected officials stuffed cash into briefcases like they were pocketing loose change. This was ABSCAM. And once it broke in 1980, Washington would never be the same again. But rewind just 2 years earlier to 1978, a country boiling beneath its skin. Watergate had shattered the public's faith in government. Vietnam had left scars that still bled. The economy was sluggish. Inflation, unemployment, and gas lines choked the American dream. And above it all, a dangerous idea was taking root. That power was for sale, and everyone had a price. The FBI saw it. They felt it. They watched as organized crime thrived in cities like New York, Chicago, and Philadelphia. The mafia was no longer just a backroom menace. It had lawyers, judges, cops, and politicians on its payroll. Stolen art and forged securities moved across state lines like carnival tickets. Atlantic City, freshly legalized for gambling, was already a magnet for mobbed-up money launderers and casino scams. In the shadows of the capital, whispers of deals and dirty money echoed through marble hallways. And it wasn't paranoia, it was reality. So, in the middle of that storm, a handful of FBI agents in New York had an idea. What if they didn't chase criminals the old-fashioned way? What if they built a trap so irresistible, so tailored to greed, that corruption would walk right into it? What if, instead of knocking down doors, they opened them, with the promise of unlimited wealth waiting on the other side? The plan was unthinkable. Agents would go undercover, posing as representatives of a fictitious sheikh from the oil-rich Middle East, Sheikh Kambir Abdul Rahman. This sheikh didn't exist, but he had cash, influence, a thirst for investment in American real estate, casinos, rare art, and most importantly, political connections. They set up shop in a modest office in Long Island, decorated just enough to feel exotic. Brass ornaments, velvet chairs, Arabic calligraphy. They recruited conmen, informants, even a convicted swindler named Melvin Weinberg, who knew how to talk the talk. He became the liaison, the man who made introductions, and with cameras hidden in coat racks and briefcases, the show began. At first, it was small-time crooks, a few mobsters, a stolen painting or two, shady bankers offering fake bonds. But then, something changed. Someone asked a question that flipped the entire operation on its head. Can your sheik get a green card if he donates to a senator? And that one question cracked open a new door, straight into the heart of American politics. Soon, the FBI was filming meetings with elected officials who didn't blink when asked to commit crimes on tape. They smiled, they negotiated, they laid out their price tags. One congressman asked for $50,000 in exchange for helping the sheik gain permanent residency in the US. Another said he'd use his connections to secure casino licenses. A senator assured them that influence in Washington could be bought, just like any other commodity. What these men didn't know was that every second was being recorded. The footage is surreal. A congressman leans back, cigar smoke curling in the air, as he says the words, "I've got larceny in my blood." Another laughs while stuffing wads of cash into his briefcase, joking about how easy it is to make things happen in DC. No shame, no hesitation, just pure distilled arrogance. This wasn't fiction, this wasn't rumor, this was raw proof. And when it finally surfaced, it set off explosions that shook every branch of government. The public, already weary from years of deception and scandal, finally saw the unfiltered face of corruption. And it wasn't a shadowy criminal, it was their congressman, their senator, the man they voted for. By the time ABSCAM concluded, the fallout was massive. 1 U.S. senator, 6 congressmen, and a dozen other officials, including city council members, state legislators, and business leaders, were either convicted or forced to resign. Political careers ended overnight. Scandals erupted in every direction. Defense attorneys argued entrapment. Civil libertarians cried foul. But the footage didn't lie. The briefcases didn't lie. The voice on the tape saying, "I can get your man whatever he wants, as long as the money's right," that didn't lie either. And underneath it all was the FBI, playing a game so dangerous it nearly blew up in their faces. Because make no mistake, ABSCAM was controversial. Critics argued that it crossed ethical lines, that it was manipulation, not justice, that law enforcement should catch crime, not manufacture it. And the question loomed, if you dangle a golden carrot long enough, will even an honest man take a bite? But others saw it differently. They saw it as necessary, a mirror held up to a government that had become too comfortable, too insulated, too immune to consequence. ABSCAM didn't just expose a few bad apples, it revealed a system where corruption was casual, expected, hidden in plain sight. The political damage was incalculable. Trust, already fragile post-Watergate, collapsed even further. Newspapers ran headlines that read like satire. Congressman caught in cash for green card sting. Senator offers to deliver votes for $100K. Comedy shows parodied it. Late-night hosts turned it into a punchline. But for millions of Americans, it wasn't funny. It was confirmation that everything they feared about Washington was true. The FBI, emboldened by the results, defended its actions. They argued that the operation didn't create corruption. It revealed it. They didn't invent greed. They just turned on the lights. But for every politician caught, how many more were never filmed? How many deals were struck behind closed doors that never involved a fake Sheik? How many pockets were lined without a camera to catch the moment? That's the question ABSCAM left behind, a question that still haunts American politics today. The fallout wasn't just loud, it was seismic. Washington shook, headlines screamed, and America watched with disbelief as the mighty fell. One by one, politicians who had once basked in power and prestige were dragged into courtrooms under blinding camera lights, flanked by attorneys, trying to explain how tens of thousands of dollars ended up in their pockets. Some denied, some blamed entrapment, some claimed they were joking, but the tapes didn't blink, they didn't stutter, they didn't forget. What they captured was crystal clear. Elected officials in tailored suits, smiling as they accepted bribes from a man they believed was a wealthy Arab sheik. Money exchanged hands, promises were made, influence was pledged, and for those caught on tape, there was nowhere to hide. At the center of it all stood Senator Harrison A. Williams of New Jersey, the highest-ranking official nabbed in the sting. A once respected Democrat with over 20 years in the Senate, Williams was seen in FBI footage eagerly discussing potential business deals and lucrative investments in exchange for political favors. He wasn't just asking for help. He was offering access to the Senate floor, like a salesman pushing premium merchandise. In 1981, Williams was convicted of bribery and conspiracy, sentenced to 3 years in prison, and became the first senator in 80 years to be imprisoned for crimes committed while in office. He would later resign in disgrace, but the damage to public trust was already done. He wasn't alone. Congressman Michael Myers of Pennsylvania, caught on tape stuffing $50,000 into his pocket and joking about how it was like taking candy from a baby, was convicted and expelled from the House. Congressman John Murphy, Raymond Lederer, Frank Thompson, John Jenrette, and Richard Kelly all fell like dominoes. Each one tried to argue their innocence. Some claimed they were just stringing the Sheik along. Others said they knew it was too good to be true. But the juries didn't buy it. The evidence was too clean, too undeniable. And then there were the under-the-radar players, the middlemen, the bagmen, the city council members and labor officials who facilitated the meetings, who greased the wheels. They fell too. Over a dozen convictions, dozens of reputations destroyed. The trials became a national obsession. Every day, the American public tuned in to hear the latest twist. Court transcripts read like a mafia movie. Politicians were grilled on their ethics, their integrity, their price tags. The FBI agents behind the operation, especially John Good, the mastermind of the sting, were dragged into the spotlight. Some hailed them as heroes. Others accused them of becoming too much like the criminals they chased. Because while the public was outraged by the corruption, they were also unsettled by the method. Hidden cameras, fake personas, elaborate deceptions, critics shouted entrapment. Civil liberties advocates raised alarms. Was this really law enforcement, or was it theater? The questions split the country. On one side were those who said ABSCAM was a necessity, that it cut through the polished lies of politics and revealed the greed rotting at its core. On the other side were those who feared what it meant when the government itself became the bait, when agents could manufacture crimes simply by offering temptation. Even within the FBI, tensions simmered. ABSCAM had been wildly effective, but was it ethical? Some agents worried it would open a door too dangerous to close, that future stings could spiral into abuse, that the line between investigation and manipulation would blur beyond recognition. But the public didn't forget the tapes. They didn't forget the suitcases of cash. And for years after, whenever a politician made a promise or talked about serving the people, there was always a silent, skeptical voice whispering, "How much are you getting paid for that?" ABSCAM poisoned the well. It confirmed every cynical thought Americans had about their leaders. That power corrupts, that influence has a price, that those in charge weren't immune to greed, they were bathing in it. And yet, in a strange twist, the ABSCAM scandal didn't lead to massive reform. There was no sweeping anti-corruption legislation, no grand reckoning in Congress. A few ethics rules were tightened, a few internal watchdogs were given sharper teeth. But politics, as always, found a way to survive. The convicted officials served their time, then quietly disappeared. A few tried to claw their way back into public life. Some gave bitter interviews, others maintained their innocence until the end. But the legacy of ABSCAM didn't live in their stories. It lived in the footage. In the grainy VHS tapes that showed power being bought, sold and brokered in real time. Hollywood, of course, couldn't resist. In 2013, American Hustle, a fictionalized version of ABSCAM, hit theaters starring Christian Bale, Bradley Cooper and Jennifer Lawrence. It was glitzy, exaggerated and drenched in style. But even amid the dramatization, the core truth remained untouched. This really happened. Politicians really did take money from a fake sheik. They really did sell out their offices for envelopes of cash, and they really did get caught. Today, ABSCAM feels like a relic from a dirtier, less sophisticated time. But look closer, and its fingerprints are everywhere. In campaign finance scandals, in lobbying investigations, in ethics probes that reveal politicians vacationing on donor yachts or accepting consulting fees from shadowy firms. The Sheik might be gone, but the game is still alive, and every time a new scandal breaks, a new headline screams corruption, a new official falls from grace, you can hear the echo of ABSCAM in the background. That fake office in Long Island, that fake name, that hidden camera quietly recording history. ABSCAM didn't fix politics, it didn't end corruption, but it tore the mask off. And for one unforgettable moment, America saw the monster behind it. And maybe, just maybe, That was enough.